Good afternoon, students.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So, as a part of paper 2, historiography and historical methods, we already discussed up to the things like nature and scope of history and aims and objectives. Sorry, aims and objectives, and uh, finally, in the last class, we discussed about history as a part of social science. And while reading history or writing history, what are the things you have to be followed? Okay, so these are the things we completed in the last class, and in the last class, we completed up to history and its relation with other social sciences, right? So we had the discussion over history, its relation with political science and constitutional studies, and history relation with economics, history relation with other diplomatic studies, and history relation with geography, and history relation with um, relation with anthropology. Okay, so like history, it's a basic relation with other social sciences. We completed up to the history, its relation with other social sciences, right? So today we have to see about while writing or reading, we have different approaches. Before going to know about the history of a particular region or territory or any world or universe or like that, before going to write or read as a part of historiography, and as a historian, you have some approaches or some interpretations of the study. Okay, so as a part of history, many schools of historiography are there, and before going to all those approaches or interpretations, I have to give you first of all the historical approach to understand the past, historical approach to understand the historiography. What is historiography? Okay, so historiography is nothing but nothing but nothing but a way of writing or knowing the past in a chronological order, and you have to following, you have to going through all these things, records of the past or any history of a particular region or any nation. You have to be follow some approaches. Among them, the historical approaches is the basic one. Okay, so before going to all these interpretations, you have to know the historical approach, and then I will give you all those things, right? So after completion of various approaches, I will give you about generalization, objectivity, subjectivity, and causation in the part of historiography, right? So all of us study history for its own sake, and we want to know basically about the past because we find it as a challenging and exciting past. Okay, so and all of us believe that by expanding our experience to the lives of men or human being, basically, so lives of a human being in different times and places. Okay, so history teaches us valuable things both about others and ourselves. And now you may be interested to know how historian retrieve the past. Okay, how historian get the information or facts or events which taken place in the past or which arranged in the chronological in the past, and how do they investigate? How do they analyze the past, basically? Okay, so based on certain witnesses, or based on certain proofs, or based on certain basic information, which taken place in the past, you can investigate into them or them, investigate those events or the things which happened in the past, or analyze those things which happened in the past. And as you know that past is not the present in solid form. Okay, so past is not the present in the solid form before anybody. To know about the past, we usually depend on multiple sources. Okay, so for example, causes of First World War or the causes of First War of Independence. Okay, so in India, the First War of Independence is nothing but 1857 revolt, 1857 revolt or Sipai Mutiny. And there is not a single source available in India which can genuinely describe all the causes of First War of Independence systematically. Okay, so therefore we are supposed to consider the multiple sources like letters between people, newspapers, any bulletins from the various wars or battles taken place, and the secondary source, nothing but the books which are written on a particular period, or any debates and taken place in various methods on the various platforms. Okay, so and any interview with experts on a period, etc. Okay, so now you may raise a question why we will consider all these as a source. Okay, so because while moving history, you have to depend on particular sources as a witness or as a evidence or anything. Okay, so without evidence or without any witness, you cannot write or you cannot say anything as a history. Okay, so because history is nothing but it's history. Generally, we say that it's a past record or record of the things which happened in the past. Okay, otherwise it's a story of the past. It's a general definitions. But while writing history, you cannot follow the general things here. Okay, so you have to be some systematic. You have to be follow some systematic writing. Okay, so the systematic writing definitely based on a witness or a source or in the form of any evidence. Okay, so here you have to show a particular evidence. You have to give a particular basic information. Okay, so basic information in the form of the references, right? So here you can quote these references as like a any newspaper. You can quote any newspaper or any bulletin or journal. Okay, so you can quote certain inscriptions or archaeological sources. Okay, so you can quote any interview, any face-to-face interview taken from a particular historian who had a lot of information on particular thing. He also a secondary source. You cannot say this is the primary source. Okay, so the primary source in the sense where you get the first information regarding a particular event or thing which happened in the past. Okay, so here where particularly now you can raise a question why we will consider all these sources, and because none of us belong to that period. Okay, so because we are at the present, right? So according to E.H. Carr, the definition history is nothing but a unending dialogue between past and present. Okay, so we are not lived or we are not alive at the time. We are not the contemporary at the time because we are in the present situation. Okay, so we are in the present, but the things are happened in the past, right? So as a historian, as a historian in the present, you have to analyze the things which happened in the past. You have to write, or you have to write according to your opinion, which the things happened in the past. Okay, so the things happened already over. The things happened already over, but we didn't see those things which happened in the past. But we are not the a person who had any relation with the contemporary witness. Okay, so even though you can comment, you can write, or you can analyze the on the past events at the present situation. Okay, so it means what? Based on such sources, you can write about the things happened in the past. Okay, so here, because none of us belongs to the period, nor do we have any eyewitness. Okay, so further, we cannot deny the arguments of any source in support of causes. Okay, so hence we may use a lot of educated guessing and interpretations of information and obtain from any source to reach a conclusion of certain causes. Okay, so similarly, historians are people who investigate the past and take a lot of things into consideration, like the ancient historical records written by ancient people from time to time, and use of technology like radiocarbon dating to determine the age of particular monument, structure, inscriptions, written and tales from old any source or old memories. Okay, so any murals on walls, and any rock, and in any rock cut, sorry, any inscriptions or any particular rock caves are like that. Okay, so any information you got from the rock caves are like that. Okay, so and there are some sources through which historian would know the past, and the above what we discussed so far, and the discussion what we made, it clear that social scientists uses a number of sources. Okay, so you have to go through the past objectively. Okay, so all these exercises come under a major approach is nothing but the historical approach. The historical approach on the empirical data. Okay, so the historical approach to investigate the past. Okay, so all the scientists adopt the historical approach to understand the first of all the past. Okay, so let us see different source of history. Okay, so many times we discussed about these sources while moving the early civilizations in the world, while moving Indus Valley civilization, while moving ancient Chinese civilization, we discussed the basic things like the sources. Then we are entering into the those things which happened in the particular civilization. Okay, so because on the basis of particular sources, you can understand, you can know the things which happen in particular civilization. Okay, so not only in the civilization, while moving with a history of particular region or particular nation or a world, you definitely go through certain sources. Then you have to know the history. Okay, so from the these things, it is clear that historian always depend on the multiple sources to get clear-cut information on the past happenings. And let's we see about these the possible historical sources like archaeological sources, literary source, or oral editions, or any personal interviews like that. Okay, so first of all, we'll see about the archaeological sources, and then we'll move to the literary, right? So as a part of archaeological sources, and the archaeological sources includes three types of source basically. One is the monumental findings, including buildings, images, pottery, terracotta figures, or other any antiquities you find. And another one is the numismatic evidence. Numismatic evidence in the nothing but it's about the evidence through the coins. Okay, so the study of coins is called as the numismatics, and the numismatic evidence is collected from the study of the coins, right? And another one is the epigraphic inscriptions or epigraphical sources. Okay, so epigraphy is the sense study of inscriptions. Okay, so the study of inscription is nothing but the epigraphy, and the epigraphical source includes certain inscriptions on the stones or the pillars. Okay, so like any rocks or copper plates, walls of buildings, and bricks of terracotta and stone seals or images. Okay, so these are comes under the epigraphical evidence. Okay, so the archaeological sources may be the monumental findings on the basis of numismatic evidence and epigraphical evidence. When you come to the literary sources, literary sources can be also divided into the three parts, three categories. One is the sacred or religious texts or religious literature, and those are like when you see as a part of the Indian historiography or Indian history, the sacred or religious sources like the Vedas and epics and Puranas. These are particularly, apart from this, many Upavedas are there, and Brahmanical literature are there, and Upanishads are there. Okay, so and Vedangas are there. All these comes under the Hindu religious texts. Okay, so all this comes under Hindu religious texts. Apart from Hindu religious texts, there are Buddhist texts also there, and Jaina text also there. Okay, so all this we call as a religious text. And when you see the secular literature, the secular literature can be divided into two classes. One is the private literature and official literature. And private literature includes dramas, novels, poems, books on grammar, astronomy, medicine, or any biographies, autobiographies, traveler accounts. Okay, so all this comes under the secular literature. And when you see in the official literature or the official orders the official orders issued by the various rulers and various dispatches and decisions of law courts come in the category of official literature. Okay, so all these comes under the secular literature. Okay, so the secular literature you see as a part of Indian history, particularly about ancient India, like the Rajtarangani, Kalhanas Rajtarangani, and Vikramanka Devacharita, and Ratnavali, and Kalidasa's many works are there. Okay, so all this comes under this secular literature. Okay, so this secular literature is nothing but the literature other than the religious sources. Okay, so next one is the foreign accounts, which are written by various foreigners, particularly like travelers who visited in India and who visited India in various times, and various migrants and various navigators. Okay, so and not only that, many other foreign accounts also gives you a lot of things the Megasthenes who spend here in ancient India. Okay, so when you see in the medieval part, Kitabul Hind, Al-Biruni, also Amir Khusru, who are also who spend their much of the time in the Indian territories. Okay, so like you can see about the source or history through these foreign accounts, and when you see the oral traditions, which are very helpful in imparting information about the local history or particular nation's history. And when you see the best example is Colonel Todd's Annals of Rajasthan, which is totally about these local history of Rajputana or the kingdoms of Rajputs. And apart from that, Deepavamsa, Mahavamsa, which is two important Ceylon texts, also gives you a lot of things regarding the Chandragupta Maurya and Mauryan Empire, about the Mauryan Empire. I like that. Okay, so even though these texts not belong to India, these are the Ceylon accounts and give you a lot of things regarding the Indian context. Okay, so and apart from that, on the basis of evidence, you also divide these sources into the other sources into various categories. Okay, so if we categorize all the sources of historical happenings on the recording, they can be brought under two major headings. One is the primary and the secondary. Okay, so the primary sources and secondary sources. First of all, we'll see the primary source, and these sources are the accounts prepared by person who were either directly connected with an event or were even have an eyewitness to it. Okay, so and the minutes of parliamentary and judicial proceedings, laws, treaties, official papers of states or nation, and autobiographies, which comes under the primary source. And evidence from the time, such as the census reports, letters between the people, and film footages, and newspapers, and witness through various accounts. Okay, so accounts in the sense accounts, government account, foreign accounts, government accounts. Okay, so government records. Okay, so and various books published by the government, particularly. Okay, so like census reports or any other documents which are prepared by the government, and physical discoveries like tombs, and the writings about the tombs, and various battles which comes under this primary source. When you see the secondary, there are sources which were prepared by persons who were far away from the scene of actual happening, but who took help of the eyewitness accounts in the preparing them. And the standard historical works of various periods, generally based on the original accounts, may be classified as the secondary source, like the books written on particular period and the books made on particular debate, or any recent newspapers, and which is interviews with experts on that period. Okay, so the direct the interview, face-to-face interview with a contemporary is a primary one, and the interview with a person who have the information regarding is secondary. Okay, so such based on the historical happenings or recording of historical happenings, these are two important sources you follow while writing the history. Okay, so and when you see the guidelines, when you see the historical approach, when you following the historical approach, you have to follow such things like historical evidence is derived from the historical data by process of criticism, and which is two types of external and internal. So, and you can, I will give you the guidelines which commonly used by historian in their work under the edicts of external criticism and internal criticism. when you see the external criticism, it's nothing but the authenticity and genuineness you will see in the external criticism. And external criticism establishes the authenticity and genuineness of the data. And is the relic or a document a true one or a forgery? Okay, so you have to be go through that. Is it the genuine source or any source which is copied? Okay, so various tests of genuineness may be employed. For example, to know the genuineness of Ardhashastra written by Kautilya, we want to.
సార్ ఇప్పుడు మీరు చెప్పేది స్క్రీన్ షేర్ ఉంటే చేయండి సార్.
చేస్తాను, తర్వాత చేస్తాను. ఓకే, సో
ఓకే సార్.
When you see this, the genuineness of a document of Kautilya's Ardhashastra, which requires some intricate test of signature, handwriting or script and type and spellings and language usage, documentation and knowledge available at the time, and consistency with what is known. Okay, so it may involve physical and chemical tests of ink, paint, paper, etc. Right? So, are these elements consistent with the known facts about the person, or knowledge available and the technology of the period in which the remain or the document originated? Okay. So, all these, by following all these, you can see the authenticity and genuineness of a particular document or a particular text or a particular book. Okay, so you also have some internal criticism. Internal criticism based on the historical reliability. Okay, so after the authenticity of a historical document or relic has been established, there is still the problem of evaluating their accuracy or worth. And although they may be genuine, and do they reveal a true picture? Were they competent, honest, unbiased, or actually acquainted with the facts, or did they have any motives for distorting the account? And how long after the event did they make a record of their testimony, and were they able to remember accurately what happened? Okay, so were they in agreement with other competent witnesses or not? Okay, so this is nothing but the internal criticism, and which is totally based on the historical reliability. Okay, so these are the main sources while you follow the historical approach while writing and while reading the history as a part of the historical, right? Okay, so historical, this is overall we call as the historical approach to understand the history basically. Okay, so students, this is end of my class today, and in the next class I probably maybe up to September 15th the online classes may be continuing, because after September 15th if it is possible you will reach the hostels, and we have the physical class, I think. Okay, so if any updates are there, I will give you, because after September 5th onwards, you have to apply for your hostel, and after September 15th, you will get the hostel and you will reach the college or like that. Okay, so I think up to the September 15th, the online classes may be continued. Okay, so students, this is about my explanation today, and I will meet you again with another topic like other approaches. I will give you other approaches in the next class.
Sir, సార్ సెప్టెంబర్ 1కి రానవసరం లేదా సార్ మరి?
సెప్టెంబర్ 1కి
కాలేజీకి రానవసరం లేదా సార్ మరి?
ఏమన్నా ఉంటే నేను చెప్తాను. సెప్టెంబర్ 1కి మీకు హాస్టల్ లేకుండా అంటే ఏమన్నా మీరు టెంపరీగా అడ్జస్ట్ అయ్యి కాలేజ్కి వస్తానంటే రావచ్చు.
ఓకే సార్, అంటే మ్యాండేటరీ అయితే ఏం కాదు కదా సార్?
మ్యాండేటరీ కాదు, ఇంకా మాకు క్లియర్ కట్ గైడ్లైన్స్ కూడా ఏం రాలేదు, ఇన్స్ట్రక్షన్స్ కూడా ఏం రాలేదు. ఓకే, సో ఏమన్నా ఉంటే నేను అప్డేట్ చేస్తుంటాను.
ఓకే సార్.
అంటే మీకు హాస్టల్ లేకుండా అడ్జస్ట్ కాగలరా?
అవును సార్, అవును సార్.
అంటే కొంచెం అది కూడా ఒకసారి, అంటే అందరికీ ఆ అవకాశం ఉండకపోవచ్చు. సో ఒకవేళ అవకాశం హాస్టల్ లేకుండా అడ్జస్ట్ అయ్యే అవకాశం లేని వాళ్ళు ఉంటే కొంచెం ఇబ్బంది ఒకటి ఉంటుంది కాబట్టి, సో ఏదన్నా అప్డేట్స్ ఉంటే నేను చెప్తాను. ఒకవేళ హాస్టల్ ఓపెన్ అయ్యి, ఎందుకంటే మీరు ఆల్రెడీ ఫ్రెష్ బ్యాచ్ కాబట్టి మీరు ఫీజు పే చేయాలి.
ఓకే సార్.
అవును, హాస్టల్కి సంబంధించి మీకు ఫీజు పే చేయాలి, వాళ్ళు అప్రూవల్ ఇవ్వాలి, రూమ్స్ అలాట్ చేయాలి. నాకు తెలిసి పడుతుంది, సెప్టెంబర్ 15th వరకు అయితే టైం పడుతుందని అనుకుంటున్నాను. సో ఏమన్నా ఉన్నా సరే, దానికి సంబంధించి ఎలాంటి అప్డేట్ ఉన్నా సరే మీకు నేను చెప్తూ ఉంటాను.
ఓకే సార్.
ఓకే, సో థ్యాంక్ యూ స్టూడెంట్స్, ఎండింగ్ మై క్లాస్. Meet you tomorrow.